The James Bond pre-title cold open is part of our cinematic DNA by this point. When we sit down in the theatre with our popcorn, we know we're immediately going to be thrusted into some foreign world. Who knows what will take us there? Planes, trains, automobiles, boats, spaceships, surfboards. We expect high-octane action, and lots of it. And if there are some plot elements that need to be hinted at for later, okay, but let's make it brief, because for the most part, it's pure spectacle we're after. A big rush of adrenaline right before settling us down for the soothing credit sequence. Let's rewind back to the first ever pre-title sequence, in the second Bond outing, 1963's From Russia with Love, which doesn't look anything like what it evolved into. It's a very restrained sequence, mostly consisting of Bond being slowly stalked in the dark by that film's henchmen. And it has quite an unexpected ending. If that cold open is somewhat of an outlier, in the next film, Goldfinger, the first prototypical Bond movie, we see the classic elements start to coalesce from its opening frames. 007 enters the scene masquerading as a seagull, beats up a guard so he can plant explosives, removing his wetsuit to reveal his famed tuxedo, and most iconically, lighting a cigarette oh so suavely as chaos erupts around him. And this calm under pressure moment is one that's echoed in other openings. We also get a romantic interest, who it's revealed is actually treacherous, another trope that was repeated in these sequences. In Bond's world, a distrustful female doesn't need much of a setup.
Speak up, darling, I can't hear you.
Sean Connery's outings don't give us the big action we're accustomed to these days. For the most part, he just likes a hearty bout of fisticuffs. A little bit of gadgetry, and the baddies getting wet. Like, dangerously wet. Because we know Bond likes people who are wet. We also get our first pre-title pun.
Shocking.
A signature way to end a sequence.
Saved by the Bell.
It wasn't until the Roger Moore era where these openings grew into fully fledged action set pieces, cementing the core elements we're familiar with now. Often they start without Bond. We'll have some random glorified extras in control rooms or piloting some sort of vessel until a problem arises.
Oh my God.
Then it will switch over to MI6, who will call our super spy into action.
Moneypenny, is 007 back from that African job?
He's on his last leg, sir.
This delaying the reveal of 007 is something that really flourished in the Moore era,
Well, tell him to pull out. Immediately.
building suspense for our main man's grand entrance. It's also good to establish objects that will come into play later, like ski suits in a snowy lodge, which is a common technique, like this digger Bond is hiding behind. A helicopter hovering above a chase scene. Almost pointedly,
1 million landmines, and my hovercrafts float right over them.
once the audience is hot with anticipation, we can go off to the races, indulging in some grade A stunt work, albeit cut with some really obvious back projection, and some serious suspension of disbelief not to see the stunt people at work. Still, now the audience are really worked up, you can climax it all with the money shot. These, what I'll coin wow moments, are breathtaking stunts, usually involving Bond moving through the air. And we wonder, how the hell is he going to get out of this scrape? I guess when you're airborne, the trusty parachute is a pretty good option, especially if it can also add a dose of Rule Britannia. The Moore Bonds love to start this show with some old British patriotism. I guess Brits had a lot more pride in our nation back then. Oh, how the great British Empire has faded. If you don't believe that it's this gradual build-up that makes these openings really stand out, compare it to this pale imitation. That's one of the franchise's worst openings. It just jumps straight into the action. 007 relentlessly going at it with zero foreplay. And that's without mentioning this truly bizarre tonal shift. Is anybody hot now? We're as cold as that snow. I'm afraid I don't have a lot to say about the Timothy Dalton era. The Living Daylights does have some nice stunt work. And ends with another parachute. License to Kill is an odd Scarface Miami Vice era Florida drug raid, with Bond joining forces with the DEA. Oh yeah, it also ends with some parachutes. They really do always get you out of a jam. 1995's Goldeneye brings us into the Pierce Brosnan era, and this pre-title sequence wisely paces out the action with this wow moment stunt. Instead of delaying the reveal of Bond, this sequence just obscures Brosnan's face, with wide angles, shots from behind, super close-ups, his head in silhouette, until...
Beg your pardon, forgot to knock.
When the action finally hits, it's with an increased intensity. It's this era where the action reached its peak, delivering the bombastic highs that we're more accustomed to now. Tomorrow Never Dies is probably the most dramatic of these, starting out with the usual characters finding a problem, and then waiting for Bond to turn up and save the day.
Filthy habit.
It's pretty low stakes though, just a nuclear cataclysm. The action direction is significantly more advanced than prior Bond incarnations. And for the most part, they are seriously minded and tonally consistent. Please, never again. With bigger action, of course, comes more impressive wow moments, followed by not quite so obvious special effects this time. Sometimes it actually looks like Brosnan is doing his own stunt work. That a boy, Pierce. Just as big as the action spectacle is in these sequences are the running times. The last two Brosnan films clock in at around 13 to 14 minutes, double the length of the average Moore film, and at this tail end of Pierce's reign, you do start to feel like it's becoming bloated, especially Die Another Day, which doesn't really invest you in the scenario. It all feels pretty random. So seemingly in reaction to this orgy of action, the only 4-minute introduction of Daniel Craig's Bond in Casino Royale goes back to From Russia with Love's minimalist approach. It's the only sequence in black and white, with shadowy film noir-esque lighting, that really brings the series back to its roots as cloak and dagger espionage.
Your file shows no kills, and it takes 2.
When the action does emerge, it's just a fight in a bathroom, calling back to the Connery-era scraps. Yet it's far more visceral, with grainy, handheld camera work and pounding sound effects. We're not getting the callous collateral damage of the Brosnan years. This Bond is dangerous, a trained killer. There's no quips, just cold brutality. It is a refreshing change of pace, but possibly the kind of stunt you can only pull once. Unlike parachutes, it's better to have one than not have one. Quantum of Solace tries to apply the same gritty attitude to a more typical car chase, which is also only 4 minutes long. It starts off looking kind of like a car advert, but then quickly thrusts the viewer into the franchise's most heavily edited opening sequence, with chaotic Jason Bourne-like camera work. It's all too relentless really, with not much sense of where you are. It feels pretty messy and doesn't have much of a unique identity. So this change of direction was only brief, as when Sam Mendes took the reign, he did the complete opposite. At least in the editing of Spectre, with its extended long take, which returns us to the drawn-out suspense building of old. Yet it's Skyfall's opening that's really up there with the best of the franchise. Mendes appears to want to respect the lineage of the entirety of Bond's legacy. It still starts with the moody minimalism that defines the Craig era, with bloodied corpses strewn across a darkened room matter-of-factly. But it's also a more traditional sequence in many ways, with some serious showmanship. It builds with a great progression, from car to motorbike, to train, to digger, back to train. And unlike Quantum, Mendes knows how to use the location's geography, with wide shots that both show off the scenery and let you know where the characters are in relation to each other.
It's not clean.
Repeat, I do not have a clean shot.
Though what really stands out is the way Mendes, a director more used to drama than action, manages in a very deft way to bring real stakes at the close.
I'm gonna lose them.
Take the shot.
Creating realistic tension between the different factions of MI6, which is not usually a part of the pre-title package.
Take the bloody shot.
And the signature wow moment this time is ingeniously subverted into one of hurt and failure. It also has arguably the most organic transition into a credit sequence. There's a number of films that do this inventively. But this one feels like the most poignant. Bond is washed up, out to sea. Well, let's hope that's not literally the case. I have tickets for No Time to Die tonight. At least us Brits still get some things before the Americans. I'm afraid the rest of you will have to wait. But if there's one thing I hope we've learned, that just makes the climax stronger. So I guess I'm jealous of you. One of the things I talked about in the Bond video was minimalism, and how that can often achieve stronger results. So I'd like to recommend a class from this video's sponsor Skillshare, which applies that ethos to your daily life. Erin Boyle is a writer and photographer who started this journey by just designing her first apartment, which taught her a lot of lessons about minimalist living that she applied to the rest of her life. I know I can struggle sometimes with feeling overstimulated with too much going on, so I found her class highly instructive in taking steps to remove distractions to focus on what's important. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes for all types of creators. It's great for developing skills or deepening existing ones. So whether it's filmmaking, design, technology, or just general lifestyle guidance, Skillshare is a great resource. It's curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads. And they're always launching new premium classes, so you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. And the first 1,000 people that click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of premium membership.